Good day, everyone. I am Sir Giancarlo Rollion, your teacher in General Biology 2. Today, we are going to discuss mechanisms of evolution. So, for our most essential learning competency today, it is to explain the mechanisms that produce change in populations from generation to generation. Examples of that are artificial selection, natural selection, genetic drift, mutation, and recombination. So before we start, let us first define evolution. So what is evolution? Evolution refers to the change in genetic frequency in a given population, whereas this genetic frequency is the percentage of alleles in a single population. As we know, allele is defined as any one of two or more genes that may occur alternatively at a given site or locus on a chromosome. These alleles are responsible for variations in a trait. So a population is an interbreeding group of individuals of one species in a geographic area at the same time. A population may evolve because the population contains the collection of genes called the gene pool. As changes in the gene pool occur, that is where a population or the evolution happens. So one misconception about evolution is that individual organisms evolve. It is true that natural selection acts on individuals. Each organism's trait affect its survival and reproductive success compared with those of other individuals. But the evolutionary impact of natural selection is only apparent in how a population of organisms changes over time. So gene frequencies in population may change due to four fundamental forces of evolutions. So these are the mechanisms that affects the evolution of a population. The first one is the natural selection. Second one, the mutation. Third one, gene flow. And then last is the genetic drift. So let us define each of them. First, let us talk about natural selection. So what is natural selection? Natural selection leads to an evolutionary change when some individuals with certain traits in a population have a higher survival and reproductive rate than others and pass on these inheritable genetic features to their offsprings. Evolution acts through natural selection, whereby reproductive and genetic qualities that prove advantageous to the survival prevail into future generations. So the cumulative effects of natural selection process have given rise to populations that have evolved to succeed in specific environments. Natural selection operates by differential reproductive success, or what we call fitness of individuals. So the best example of this is the Darwin's finches. So as we can see, the Darwin's finches diagram illustrates the way the finch has adapted to take advantage of feeding in different ecological niches or ecological roles. So we can see here that some birds specializes in eating mainly insects. Some birds they eat buds and other parts of the tree or a plant, and then some they of the birds or the finches, they feed mainly on seeds. So because of the prevailing condition of the Galapagos Island that time, adaptive radiation takes place. So the birds survive were most adapted to the environment. Some finches specializes on buds and fruits, some on cactus, seeds, and other parts, while others feed mainly on seeds or insects. So the next mechanism of evolution is the genetic drift. So genetic drift is chance events can also cause allele frequencies to fluctuate unpredictably from one generation to the next, especially in a small population. So that is what we call genetic drift. This random drift consists of random fluctuations in the frequency of appearance of a gene, usually in small population. So the process may cause gene variants to disappear completely, thereby reducing the genetic variability. In contrast to natural selection, environmental or adaptive pressures do not drive changes due to genetic drift. So the effect of this genetic drift is larger in small populations and smaller in large populations. So genetic drift is considered to be a stochastic process, or let's say it is a random process. So a random event that happens by chance in nature that influences or changes allele frequencies within a population as a result of sampling error from generation to generation. So we have two types of genetic drift. It can be a founder effect or the population bottleneck. It may happen that some alleles are completely lost within a generation due to genetic drift, even if they are beneficial traits that contribute to evolutionary reproductive success. So the population bottleneck and a founder effect are two examples of this random drift, and they can have significant effects in small populations. Then genetic drift works on all mutations and can eventually contribute to the creation of new species by means of the accumulation of the non-adaptive mutations that can facilitate population submission. Another mechanism of evolution is the mutations. So when we define mutation, it is the change in the DNA sequence within a gene or chromosome of a living organism. Many mutations are neutral. They can neither harm nor benefit, but can also be deleterious or beneficial. These deleterious mutations can affect the phenotype or the observable characteristics of an organism, and in turn, they can reduce the fitness of an organism, or they can increase the susceptibility to several illnesses and other disorders. So on the other hand, the beneficial mutations can lead to the reproductive success and adaptability of an organism to its environment. These beneficial mutations can be spread and fixed in the population due to natural selection processes if they help individuals in the population to reach sexual maturity and to successfully reproduce. So this picture shows the different mutations that may happen in an organism. So mutations are undoubtedly a source of genetic variation and serve as a raw material for evolution to happen. So these are the examples of different mutations that may happen in a chromosome or in a gene or in a genome of an organism. The last mechanism of evolution is the gene flow. So in population genetics, gene flow are or is also known as gene migration, which refers to the transfer of genes from the gene pool of one population to another. So this gene flow may change the frequency and or the range of alleles in the populations due to the migration of individuals or the gametes. that can reproduce in a different population. The introduction of new alleles increases variability within a population, and it allows for new combinations of traits. Gene flow occurs, for example, when wind carries seeds far beyond the bounds of the parent plant population. As another example, animals may be driven off from a herd. So this forces them to migrate to a new population, thereby bringing new genes to a gene pool, and then this gene flow tends to increase the similarity between remaining populations of the same species because it makes gene pools more similar to one another. An example of gene flow is the migration of humans. As you can see in the picture, it is entitled The Human Journey, the Migration Routes. So human migrations have occurred throughout the history of mankind and are defined as the movement of people from one place to another. However, in a genetic context, this movement needs to be associated with the introduction of new alleles in a population through successful mating of individuals from different populations. So these are the four mechanisms that affects the evolution of a population. Again, we have natural selection, the genetic drift, mutation, and last is the gene flow. We all know that each one of them has a unique way of affecting the genetic frequency of a population. So these factors are responsible for the production of different species. As I end, I want to leave you this quotation from Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. So that's all. Thank you for listening and hope to see you on our next meeting. Thank you.